guys and gals, and welcome back to another Division 2 video. If you happen to be new to the channel, or you're just enjoying the content, then ground and pound that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to turn on post notifications, so that way you know each and every time a video is uploaded or a stream goes live. All you have to do is reach up there and trigger that bell. But anyways, I'm going to be showing you multiple variations and going over my thought process with this complete, I guess you could say in PvE terms when it comes to raid, a tank to an extent compared to a lot of others, but still dishing out tons and tons of damage along the way, showing you different variations so that way you can conform it to your playstyle and to your personal preference. But let's hop right into it. Alright, this is one variation. Now, depending on the type of weapon you want to use will also determine the filler piece that which you need to go with. We'll start with the character sheet. On this particular variation, as you can see, 21.176 with the P416, 59.5% all weapon damage, and then 116% damage to elites. And then there's we go into the armor, the 40% hazard protection, the bleed resistance, 40 all the way down. And this is just one variation. Now, let's say you think maybe 116 is a little probably on the too much on the damage to elite side, and as long as you feel that you're over 100% damage to elites, then you're okay and you just would like a little bit more base damage. Well, then all you need to do is switch out one piece to the likes of such as like the Gilligard, as you see here. And then my armor increases to 279k armor, and actually my health goes up a little bit. You do lose 10% damage to elites, as you'll see that I am still at 106%. But with that Gila or Gila, whichever you prefer and however you prefer to pronounce it, I also gain 2 offensive mod slots, and this current one is 5.5%, and you can throw on another, say, 2.5% if you want a little bit more skill power. Then you can do that as well, as you see in this holster. But of course, 461 is not really that much unless you got some of those purple mods, so that way you can utilize them if you do have them. But if you're just looking for that extra base damage, for instance, then with this 6.5% and this one offensive mod slot and 2.5% in the other, that's 9% compared to the likes of such as things like Devastating, instead of the personal favorite of mine, the Gila holster. Now the base weapon damage, as you can see, it goes up to 22.3k, and then it goes up to 68.5% all weapon damage. Now, if you have better rolls on your chest piece, then you can actually be well over 70%. But as you can see, I only have 12 on this particular chest piece, and only 7 on the backpack. And then, of course, on the gloves, it capped me at 9. But let's say you want to go with, better, I guess, stats, more or less. You could go with the likes of Devastating, as you can see on these gloves, with 11% and 5%. I think the max is 12, so it'll be a total of 17. But then if you switch back and go with the hard hitting on your holster, you'll still be at 106%, but you're still getting more bang for your buck because you're getting 9 on your holster versus the 9 that you have on your gloves, so a total of, say, 18. And then with no weapon damage on, then going with the likes of 17 on your gloves with Devastating, and of course the weapon type damage on your gloves, then you're still going to come out with a little bit better on your overall damage the way that I have it. But also, if you want, say, a little more DPS or a little more tankiness, and you can have the likes of, say, a Fenris piece that you can use Berserk, Unstoppable Force, but keep in mind, Unstoppable Force only procs for a few seconds after you get a kill. So initially, you don't get no bonus. It only applies till after you get a kill. But if you go with such things like Bloodsucker here, then that will actually prolong your survivability, because you'll be able to eat through NPCs with 106% damage to elites with the base weapon damage at almost 22.5k, nearing 23. And then, of course, if you accompany that with such things like patience, then it'll drastically increase your survivability. So also keep that in mind. But as is, we'll go over this particular, my favorite way is this right here. So let's start with the mask. 10% hazard protection, 43% damage to elites, and then of course we have hard hitting for a total of 53% damage to elites on just the mask. Skill power is just more or less a filler, but it gives me 3% extra explosive damage and of course 2% grenade damage. And for having 3 pieces of this particular brand set, I get 5% total armor, an additional 20% hazard protection, and then 15% pulse skill power. But more or less, the third talent on this brand set is insignificant unless you're running a pulse. But the Gila brand set gives you the most bang for your buck, thus those 2 offensive mod slots in the holster, right? So let's move on to the second piece, which is this particular chest piece. 11% total armor, 23,117 armor, 12% weapon damage with the hard hitting. And of course, we have 2 defensive mod slots and an additional offensive mod slot, which is definitely crucial for that extra oomph base damage on your AR, and which can apply to damage to elites, which is multiplicative of that damage. Overall, you get more damage and DPS output. So on the first mod, we have 7458 health, 7% health regen, and 692 armor regeneration. And the second one, 5107 armor, 3% total armor, and 1619 armor on kill. And then the offensive system mod, we have 1.5% weapon damage. The 2% shotgun damage is insignificant, but mainly it's that 5% and the all weapon damage. So a total of 6.5% additional damage for a total of 18.5% weapon damage just by way of your chest alone. And as you can see on Bloodsucker, the one that I have here does not have a offensive mod slot, so I would actually lose that additional, say 4.5% total weapon damage, almost right at 5. So in my opinion, if it's a pure PvE build, then this is the way that I would like to go at it. But back to the holster, as we went over before, 42,748 health, 371 skill power. If you want something like health on a kill and you have a better holster than what I have, but as you can see, it has 14.5% health for 27,489 health. I'm actually capped out, I think, at 29k on that one, but it still has the 2 offensive mod slots, which is the 2.5% weapon damage, 1.5% headshot damage, 3% optimal range, and then of course the 1.5% weapon damage, 2% pistol damage, and then the 5% assault rifle damage for a total of 9% weapon damage just from the mods. Now moving on to the other 2-piece brand set, it is the Murakami Industries for having 1 piece, 8% health, 2 pieces, 10% hazard protection, and then of course the attributes are as followed: 16,221 armor, 2188 health, 7% weapon damage. You're utilizing efficient because you are limited on your med kits when it comes to, or armor kits I should say, when it comes to the raid. But using an armor kit has a 50% chance to not consume the armor kit. And the reason why I chose Bloodsucker and demonstrated and showed you that earlier, as far as a way of prolonging one's life using the procs of Bloodsucker, because when you accompany that with efficient, it's best to pair those 2 versus the likes of unbreakable and efficient, because one or the other, depending on which one you have on the build first, will not allow the other one to work. So you can't have unbreakable and efficient on at the same time. And of course we have hard hitting, and then we have an additional mod slot with 5655 armor, 445 armor regen, and then 2.5% total armor. Now on to the second piece of the Murakami. 3% health, wish I had a better health roll on that one. And then of course the 9% assault rifle damage, in which I'm capped at. I wish it was at least 12%, that would give me a little bit more base damage. And then of course hard hitting, the additional 10% damage to elites. Now on to the Fenris, and the only reason why we have this one Fenris is because 1 piece gives you 10% assault rifle damage. And of course we are utilizing the Survivalist. But come Title Update 4, if you don't know, you'll be able to pick any specialist that you want and pick 3 archetype weapons that you so choose for any individual specialist. But keep in mind, if you go with Sharpshooter, only the rifle or marksman will actually give you that bonus headshot damage that comes along with the specialist Sharpshooter. So if you're using an AR or LMG, things of that nature with Sharpshooter, you'll lose that bonus headshot damage. And the only way to get that bonus headshot damage is run the Nemesis as your secondary and using the holstered talent. But the skies are the limit. If you want to run a pulse, by all means do so. If you want to, say, keep that damage to elites, or just want to go with the likes of a Fenris and have the 5% devastating. And then also by having the 2-piece Fenris, you see as my armor goes up to 283, but then I dropped about 25, almost 26k health. But in turn, you also get the 10% protection from elites, so it pretty much all the elites nullifies their damage by 10%. So in turn also will increase your survivability because you're taking less damage. So if you want to go with that, you'll be losing, 4% weapon damage on there. But like I said, it's all about personal preference and your playstyle. So tweak it as you see fit. If you want to go with such things like, say, the Merciless, which is actually a good PvE build when it comes to the raid as well, then basically you just want to mix and match and have it a little bit of, say, one piece of China Light Industries for the explosive damage, and then also have as a talent instead of one of these pieces that you can substitute out, so that way you still have 106, or even go down to 96, but then that gives you that buff from having destructive. Let me see if I actually have one so I can get the, but I believe it's 10% or 20%. It's one of those two that the talent actually gives you explosive damage, so it comes in really, really handy. And I don't have one, it must be in my pouch, but you kind of get the point. With the Merciless, you want to have explosive damage for that particular talents that are baked into it, and then of course damage to elites to amplify that explosive damage even more. So you kind of do as you see fit. But if you're more like the support role player and you're going to be shooting in cover, make sure you have patience on your knee pads, and that is the next thing we'll be going over. And Fenris is a good piece to have regardless what weapon type you're using, because just like on the chest piece, Fenris can have 2 talents on your knee pads. In this case, hard hitting and patience. When you accompany patience with the like of talents on your weapons such as preservation to further fortify your armor and help out your survivability, it comes in really, really good and synergizes with other talents to prolong your survivability by utilizing your cover, and in turn you can absorb more damage. So for instance, you're getting 10% protection from elites, and if you're in cover, every second after 5 you're generating 5 seconds of armor through patience. And then of course, let's say you're using an AR with preservation, then killing an enemy repairs 10% of your armor over 5 seconds. You're using that as one of your talents, so every elite NPC gold that you completely shred with this much damage to elites, you're in turn, while in cover, you're getting 5% every second, along with the 10% armor over 5 seconds and getting the additional repair by killing them by headshots. Then also you can kind of see where this is going. It's not more or less fortifying your armor and health by stacking armor and health, but you're more or less strengthening it and making it last a lot longer just due to your talents on your weapons and your gear. Because most people's conception of when it comes to their thought when someone says they're tanky is exactly how much armor and health that you actually have. But it's not wrong, but it's not exactly correct either. Depending on your armor and health and what talents you utilize, you can actually make yourself tankier than someone that would have 360k armor versus my 283, but have no armor regeneration, not utilizing patience, not utilizing preservation, and things of that nature to help fortify their health. So you kind of understand it and get where I'm going. But I'm using the P416. It depends on which one. If I'm in certain stages where I need a little bit longer range with extra damage, and that is why I have this particular military P416, 21.8k with Ranger, Allegro, and then Protected Deploy. And then of course, like I said, on more close up, such as like the first stage of the raid, then I use the one with preservation, so that way I can stay up longer and help those that are on the turret, or just do basically crowd control, so that way I don't go down quite as easily. So each NPC that I kill while I'm in cover, I'm getting my armor right back from what damage I'm taking. I have the protection from the leads, I got the hazard protection going, so it all kind of synergizes together. But if you prefer a little less tankiness to go with the likes of a Fenris chest piece that has 2 talents, then by all means do so. I just thought that this was a more bang for your buck. You don't have to worry about actually getting a kill in order to proc something, and in turn you don't have to worry about how much armor that you actually have is not dependent on what you're going to get in return, such as the like of Bloodsucker, Unbreakable, and Berserk of this nature. You're just doing straight up, no holds barred, without any ifs, ands, or buts, or any kind of guesswork as far as if you're going to be the last one to land a shot on an NPC in order to get a proc from Bloodsucker. Not have to worry about trying to be tanky enough when all your armor is completely ripped off or half of it ripped off, because those NPCs are super, super strong in the raid. So really, Berserk can help, but you can dish out extra damage, but it only procs when your armor is, leaving. So, it depends on a person's playstyle and their preference is what it all boils down to. But this is, I guess, one of my ultimate PvE builds, more or less, for the raid. I soloed Heroic with no problem with this particular build. And it all just depends on if you want to run the 2% protection, the 10% protection from elites from the 2-piece Fenris. You want to go with a little bit more, damage by using a Gila holster, things of that nature. The sky's the limit. It's just all based on your personal preference and playstyle. But again, thank you all for your love and support. I appreciate each and every one of you. I've already done one PvE video with the likes of, chess piece talents and that nature, but I found that this was actually a lot tankier to an extent as far as not just my overall armor and health, which is it was and is, but more or less the talents that I synergized together with it, along with doing a lot more damage to elite and named bosses and enemies than what my previous one was. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Appreciate all the love and support. Thank you so much, Gorilla Fam. And we'll see you guys fudging later.